In Module 8, you'll learn everything there is to know about fractions and proportions. Ratios and proportions. Before we can get into the proportions, we need to understand what a ratio is. A ratio is the decimal equivalent result we get when we divide the numerator by the denominator of a fraction, such as 1 divided by 2 equals 0.5. A ratio can be expressed in one of three ways, all read as the ratio of n to d. Here we have the first way is n to d, n to d, and n to d. When we state that two fractions are proportional, we mean that their ratios are the same. For example, 1/2 equals 2/4 because their ratios are the same. 1 divided by 2 equals 0.5, and 2 divided by 4 also equals 0.25, so that these fractions are proportional to each other and their ratios are the same. Here we have literal fractions. They're all letters. We have n is to d equals 2 times n to 2 times d equals 3 times n to 3 times d. Let's evaluate this with numbers a second. Let n equal 1 and d equal 2. Then we have 1/2, n over d, equals 2/4, which is 2 times n. 2 times 1 equals 2. 2 times 2 equals 4. We have 3n, 3d, so 3 times 1 equals 3, and 3 times 2 equals 6. 1/2 equals 2/4 equals 3/6. They're all proportional because their ratios are the same. 1 divided by 2 equals 0.5. 2 divided by 4 equals 0.5. And also 3 divided by 6 equals 0.5. Ratios or proportions can be written in three different ways, all read as n is to d as 2n is to 2d. Here we have n is to d as 2n is to 2d. n is to d as 2n is to 2d. And n is to d as 2n is to 2d. They all mean the same thing. You can express it in any of these forms. It's exactly the same. When two fractions are proportional, the means will equal the extremes. In the proportion below, the means are the inside terms right here, and the extremes are the outside terms. So we're going to multiply. 2 times 2 equals 4, and 1 times 4 equals 4. 4 equals 4, therefore they're proportional. Written as a fraction with the means in red and the extremes in blue, we have the means are right here, the extremes are there. We're going to be cross multiplying. 2 times 2, 2 times 2 equals 4. 1 times 4 equals 4. So again, means equals the extremes. They're proportional. Also, if we evaluate it with 1 divided by 2, we get 0.5. 2 divided by 4, we get 0.25. Here we have an unknown quantity, x. You'll find this in algebra an awful lot, that we use proportions to solve for equations. We have 3/8 equals x over 32. We're going to cross multiply. We get 8x equals 3 times 32. 8x equals 96. We want x to stand alone, so we're going to divide both sides by 8. So we cancel out the 8 over here. We have x equals 96 divided by 8. And then solving, we have x equals 12. Let's put that 12 in the equation here where it was x up above. We're going to look at a 12. We have 8 times 12, and we have 3 times 32. But let's evaluate this based on the ratio. 3 times 8 equals 0.375, and 12 divided by 32 also equals 0.375. You can try this on your calculator and confirm it. Many times you need to increase a mixture to arrive at a quantity that you need. Perhaps you're increasing a quantity of a thin latex paint. We've already added water to it, and assume the formula may be 1 part water to 9 parts paint. Here we have 1 gallon of water to 9 gallons of paint for a total of 10 gallons. In this case, the denominator is the sum of the parts. 9 plus 1 equals 10, as indicated in the table in the previous slide. The whole is the addition of both ratios. 1/10, 1 gallon water, 10 gallons total, plus 9 gallons paint to 10 gallons total. We add this together, we get 10/10 equals 1 is the whole. Let's say you require 30 gallons of paint. Proportions would let you know how much of each part is required to produce this amount. Again, the ratio is not 1 to 9. It is 1 gallon of water to 10 gallons total, and 9 gallons of paint to 10 gallons total. To determine the multiplier to produce 30 gallons, we're going to take the new quantity that we want, 30 gallons total, divided by the old quantity of 10 gallons total, and we'll get a multiplier of 3. 10 goes into 30 3 times. Here we have water, 1 gallon, paint, 9 gallons, total parts, 10 gallons. We have a multiplier of 3. So we have 1 times 3 equals 3 gallons of water. 3 times 9 equals 27 gallons of paint. And then 3 times 10 total, we get 30 gallons. Also, 3 plus 27 equals 30 gallons. The proportions here are shown on the next slide. 1/10, 1 gallon of water to 10 gallons apart will equal 3 gallons of water to 30 gallons of total parts, and 9 gallons of paint to 10 gallons total will equal 27 gallons to 30 gallons total. Now let's assume that you know the amount of each part, the total parts, and the quantity that you require. Solve for the new quantity of water required represented by x. We have 1/10 equals 8x. In other words, 1 gallon paint equals 1 gallon water equals 10 gallons total. The new quantity unknown is x equals 30. So we want to solve this. We get 10x, 10 times x. 1 times 30 is 30. We let x stand alone. 30 divided by 10 equals 3 gallons of water. Proportions solve this for us. Solve for the new quantity of paint. Same thing. We had 9 gallons of paint to 10 gallons total. We want to know what this quantity is, unknown, and we have 30 gallons total. 10x again equals 9 times 30, which is 270. We have x equals 270 divided by 10 equals 27 gallons of paint. In the previous problem, we had 9 gallons of paint and 1 gallon of water, which is a 9-to-1 ratio. Suppose we have 10 gallons of paint with this ratio of 10% water, 90% paint, but it is too thick to spray. We want to water it down. We want to add more water to it. How much water do we need to add to this to get a ratio of 8-to-2? We have 8-to-2, or 20% water, 80% paint is what we want. The proportions will be x over 9, because this is the water quantity that we have to arrive at in order to get the ratio of 2-to-8 so that they're proportional. We have water, x gallon, paint, 9 gallons. We don't know what this total parts is here because we don't know x at this point, but we know that we want 2 gallons of water for 8 gallons of paint for 10 gallons total. So we're going to use proportions. We have 8x equals 9 times 2 is 18. 8x equals 18. X then equals 18 divided by 8. So we need total 2 1/4 gallons of water. So we're going to put this in here. Water is going to be 2.25, 9 gallons of paint. Total parts, when we add that water to it, is going to be 11.25 gallons. but we want 2 gallons of water, 8 gallons of paint. So if you look here, we've already had a gallon of water. So we're going to subtract 1 gallon from 2.25, we get 1.25. You can subtract this 2 gallons from 2.25, and you will also get 1.25. I'm sorry, not there. We have the 10 gallons we subtract from the 11.25, we'll also get 1.25 gallons. Here we have 2.25 gallons of water to 9 parts paint equals 2/8. We want to make sure that these are proportional. So we have 2.25 times 8 times 2 times 9, so 18 equals 18. They are definitely proportional. The total water is 2.25 gallons, but if you remember, as stated earlier, that we already started with 1 gallon. So we only need to add an additional 1.25 gallons more to achieve an 8:2 ratio or mix. This is a very important concept because if you're in the trades and you're going for a union job or you're going for a railroad job, you may have to take an ASVAB test, which is a military aptitude test, or a TAB test, testing adult basic education test to get in, and these type examples found on all those tests. The higher score you get, the better chance you have of getting the job that you want. This concludes Module 8. If you find anything was difficult, go back and review the videos as many times as you need to until you understand the concept. On the link below, there'll be a quiz. Make sure you take that quiz and keep doing it until you get familiar with the subject completely.